school administrative office looking to sign up, so we have a few people, but not hundreds.
In the meantime, Dr. Manville will be getting in touch with the office and getting the paperwork going, so we'll be working from a number of fronts.
I think we set a goal of getting all the paperwork done by mid-March. Then from there, once we get approval, then we've got to get going with the feasibility study and then everything else. So then it really starts getting, I think, pretty fast after that.
Any idea from the time period where the paperwork's submitted to when MSBA may give us the go-ahead? What's the time period there? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I know that once we get the enrollment information in, that meeting will take place within a week. But that's just to confirm the enrollment information. So from the time we get everything in to the time we actually meet and talk about the feasibility study, it's referred to as a short period of time between one and the other. But I don't have an actual number of days or anything like that.
So maybe we're looking for funding for feasibility study, May, June?
See that? Yeah, and that obviously is a problem because that's not a time we have a regular town meeting unless
I
we.
suppose it depends on the cost of the feasibility study.
Exactly.
As to what we may need to do on.
Yes.
Right.
Need to do.
Yes.
Right. And we can't pin that down until.
We discussed it, the finance planning, but we haven't brought them the $1 million price tag. When we came with the $100,000.
Very happy when I read the transcript
Yeah.
last week, a little disappointed tonight.
I know. We were
But
like, oh,
hopefully we
yeah,
can
yeah.
use some of the prior feasibility study.
Right.
That's
That is the hope.
But the big chunk of money is going to the OP, what's the new term, OPM.
You got to hire the project.
Right.
Right.
Well, we have to hire them before the feasibility study? I don't understand that, timing-wise. I would think we would do the feasibility study, then we bring that to the town,
Not
and
sure.
say, okay, here's an option. And with the MSBA saying, okay, we like option A, you're gonna be a pilot, then you need to, have one hired by then. So where's that other $900,000, where are we spending it? What's it being used for?
Well, you don't know what what they're gonna ask for the
Right,
feasibility
we have to
study.
get the scope of the project.
You don't know what the scope.
feasibility.
Right, but if we had one from Gordon Whittier, which, let's just say it's 75% done, so we need to do a little bit more because they have new guidelines and new rules, so we need a little more work done on that. We have the architectural firm to do it already. Do we have
Well,
to go
the
through that whole
state-
process
the
again?
the
or
state
do we have to
is-
put it out to bid? Do we have to interview architects again?
No,
Do
the
we have
state's
to do all
going to tell
that?
us who we're
The
going to
state
use.
is gonna tell us who we're going to use.
Yeah, if they tell
There
us.
may be some question on that.
Right, if they tell us we can keep Dorman Whittier, then we've already paid for a lot of that work because we've got the materials. But they may say they've got somebody they want us to use and we can.
That was,
But we have to
That was me.
recreate the entire process that happened in 2005 to show that we did have an ad in the central registry, that we did interview architects, that we did have a scoring process, and through that entire process, Dorman Whittier emerged as the victor. If my understanding is that if we can do that, and everything else is equal, then we can just continue with Dorman Whittier and not have to go through that whole thing. And you may well be right. The owner's manager, the state has said to me, you have to have that person on board, identified on board and ready to go before you start the feasibility study.
What was that person to do?
I don't know.
Cliff's work.
I'm doing this one step at a time, believe me. I'm not sure. I was a little surprised at that myself. I thought it seemed like once we start and ready to go, then you bring the person on board. But I think this is speculation on my part, and don't hold me to this. But just the way the state is controlling this whole process now, where they want the architect and they're going to tell you the direction of the feasibility study. I think they just want all the players in the same room at the same time to make sure everybody has an understanding of where they're driving this project. That's just speculation on my
We need
part.
to know what time the feasibility starts. It's gonna take 2 months to find one, interview and stuff, so we're already late hiring, It's kind of a cart before the horse, because we don't really know what we need out of one to start interviewing one yet.
What you tend to
You
be.
you need to have the owner's project manager on board from the beginning, because they will help to drive the architect. There's certain things that they're gonna be looking for, and so I think the state is looking for that operation to help to guide the architect or work with the architect in the process. And the reason why this is such an expensive operation is because the state is now gonna make a commitment of money. And so they wanna carry this process a whole lot further than they have in the past. What you're gonna have is something that's well-developed, so you can get a much better estimate of the cost, the overall cost of it, before they commit, before we're committed, before that decision is reached. And they don't want to say, well, you're going to have 50% of a $75 million project, and find out later on that that's really a whole lot less or a whole lot more than that. They want that number honed in. And the way that estimates are developed, even when you have the final thing going out to bid, you're not that sure of that number. There's too many things that can happen. You find that all of the borings you did, you missed all of the points of the rock, and now you have a big, subsurface problem. Or that you hit all of the rock and you missed all of the mush. So once you're up out of the ground, things become more regulated and more assured. But the state is looking for hard numbers, so that the whole process has to go to a much more detailed level than we've ever seen in the past. And in the way that the architect will develop it will be with what's referred to as 3D design, and so that they will be enumerating every light fixture and every window and every piece of trim. Everything will have a designation on it, and that will be put into the bill of materials and have a price tag associated with it, so that you get a very solid number instead of X number of dollars a square foot.
Well, I think it's fair to say that the presumption is that the feasibility study is going to find that the project is feasible. And I think the presumption is that once you, even though they're saying it's only a feasibility study, once they're entering you into the pipeline, there's been very few, if any, projects since MSBA has come on board that they've done a feasibility study and said, oh, no, we're not gonna do a project here. And I think that's why they want that that manager on right away, as Cliff said, so then when the feasibility study is done, you're moving like that.
So when or can we begin to look for a manager?
That's a good question.
I mean,
That
it
was
seems
my
like
point.
you need one now.
Right.
That's what I'm saying,
Right.
we're late.
If we're looking,
And it's our hope that they'll accept Doran Whittier and the feasibility studies that have been done, and let us just keep rolling with that project.
But we need an OPM.
We still need to, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Well, they,
Well,
hopefully Doran Whittier has staff or associates that they work with.
What'll happen there is, looking for that person becomes, you're looking for another architectural firm, you're looking for another firm, is what you're doing. The firms that we interviewed the first time around, they would bid on something like that, to do the operation managers type situation. And that's what happens. Doran Whittier could wind up doing that, and somebody else could wind up designing the feasibility study. All right, that's a possibility. And the reason they did that, and Newton North has a lot to do with what happened, because the project ran away with itself. And that's what the state is saying, we're not gonna see any more of these projects that are running away with themselves. And that's how they're controlling it.
Joe, do we have any money left in the warrant article, for doing geotech studies?
No, you have about, well, speaking out of time, I don't know, I think we have about, I would say $9,000 or $10,000 left, that's all, because we only were allowed 25 when we originally did the geotech study out there. And I think we used up all of it, but around 10,000. Cal could probably
I'll
tell.
confirm it, but that sounds right.
It's about where it should be, okay? It wasn't a lot of money that we asked for at that time. The feasibility study was only 25,000.
Right. Now, is there anything that we could be doing in, like, traffic studies or?
Well, we did have a that was part of what we paid for, a limited traffic study, which is, I have here, that was submitted at the time that we did geo out there. We did a little traffic study,
Right.
and I have it here.
So we have some things we could work with, or?
Well, yeah, you have some numbers to work with. We had traffic flow done in and out of the school, traffic flow done out on 62. Little things like that. I mean, you weren't gonna get a lot for the amount of money we had to spend, but we did have something done, so it's something to start with.
Good, well,
I think if we shoot for a goal of mid-March, get all the paperwork done, I think that's pretty quick, given everything that the state has sent us and the committee changes. I do think it's important to find out, because you're right, it does not say on here that we need to have someone in all of these categories.
Right.
So we need to find that out, and we need to find out how much we can be doing now with the existing committee. And also the question about the OPM, I think we need to ask that anyway. But if we get everything in by mid-March, I think we're gonna be on a pretty rapid schedule after that. So,
sound good?
and we'll get the revised
Yes, we'll get there. And we'll
charge,
send copies.
we'll get the revised charge out to everybody.
Right.
So it's
It's a huge project.
Yes.
to embark on. Well, thank you guys and
Thanks.
ladies, and,
Thanks for hanging in there during the lull.
yes. we
Hopefully we'll have a
really-
lot to
we
do
really
over the next few
appreciate
months, hopefully.
Yeah.
So you're gonna put the ad in the paper probably next week,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there. And
It will go to charge.
then I think we're gonna have to have a workshop down the road. Okay.
Very good.
I think we did that before. We went to go on a school, and Chuck and I talked our butts off, giving all the different options.
Right.
How long ago was that?
When did we do that?
When were we in Stoneham?
When they were in Stoneham. How long ago was that? 3 years ago? Okay. Time flies.
They shut down operations for a while, like the university.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay, back up to the budget.
Budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Budget discussion. How's David talking? Oh, it's the upcoming budget, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Keith?
We, Mr. Nelson and I have met with other members of the administration and kind of kicked around the FY11 budget. And basically, we had given you a level service budget at the request of the committee the last time. And, you know, there's just not enough information. We're not getting any information from the state to allow us to do anything really definitive at this point. The governor's budget has come out, and that budget's level funded, Chapter 70 money, which is good news. But we don't know what the state budget's gonna look like, even though everybody says they don't wanna touch Chapter 70 money. So we're sort of getting an idea of potential plans of action depending upon different scenarios, but we just think that it's, to get into any kind of detailed discussion at this point in time, I know we're gonna have budget hearings probably next month, but to actually put something forward right now would be not very good, I don't think.
I went to a suburban coalition meeting on Thursday night,
Uh-huh.
and they had 5 legislators there, and Noah Berger from Mass Budget. And the sense that came back from those legislators was that the budget that the governor put out for Chapter 70 all could likely see between 5 and 10% cut out of it. On the other hand, I've read somewhere, and I can't pick out exactly where, but there are regulations regarding the ARRA monies that the state has to fund like prior years, no less than like they did in 07, 08 through this period. And so it looks to me like that may be a problem for the state. that they won't be able to cut the chapter 70.